Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hari Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances of Lord Shri Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class after a wonderful, blissful Gaur Purnima that we had yesterday. And I'm sure many of us outside of Harrisburg may have experienced the same ecstasy and bliss in our festival. And this morning we will be speaking on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 46. And the chapter is entitled The Passing of Bhishma Dev in the Presence of Lord Krishna. And we are slowly approaching towards the end of the chapter. So we will start with the opening prayers and we will go straight into the discussion. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Nittai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaura Haribo, Nittai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaura Haribo. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paripracharya Stota to Srimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paripracharya Stota to Srimad, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Samavita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Stai Bhutara Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Kinamani. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shidatmane Sri Gaura Karan Shakti Bhakti Tirtha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Stai Bhutara Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Kinamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I will chant the verse 3 times and I would request devotees to chant after me. Tasya nirharanadini samparatasya bhargava yudhishthira karayitva muhurtam dukkito bhavat. Tasya nirharanadini samparatasya bhargava yudhishthira karayitva muhurtam dukkito bhavat. Tasya nirharanadini samparatasya bhargava yudhishthira karayitva muhurtam dukkito bhavat. Devotees can chant, please.
Tasya hiranadini samparitasya bhargava yudhishthira karayitva muhurtam dukkito bhava.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to chant? Like to give a try?
Tasya nirharanadini samparitasya bhargava yudhishthira karayitva muhurtam dukkito abhavat.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Tasya nirharanadini सम्परत्तस्य भार्गव युधिष्ठिराकारयित्वा मुहूर्तं दुःखितो भवत्. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Anyone else like to try? Okay. I'm going to move this over here so I can see the verses clearly. So we'll do the word-for-word translation. Tasya, his, nirharana adini, funeral ceremony. Samparatasya, of the dead body. Bhargava, O descendant of Brigu. Yudhishthira, Maharaj Yudhishthir. Karayitva, having performed it. Muhurtam, for a moment. Dukkita, sorry. Abhavat, became. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O descendant of Brigu, Shonaka, after performing funeral rituals for the dead body of Bhishma Dev, Maharaj Yudhishthir was momentarily overtaken with grief. Purport. Bhishma Dev was not only a great family of Maharaj Yudhishthir, but also he was a great philosopher and friend to him, his brothers, and his mother. Since Maharaj Pandu, the father of the 5 brothers, headed by Maharaj Yudhishthir, had died, Bhishma Dev was the most affectionate grandfather of the Pandavas and caretaker of the widow daughter-in-law Kunti Dev. Although Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the elder uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthir, was there to look after them, his affection was more on the side of his 100 sons, headed by Duryodhana. Ultimately, a colossal clique was fabricated to deprive the 5 fatherless brothers of the rightful claim of the kingdom of Hastinapur. There was great intrigue, common in imperial palaces, and the 5 brothers were exiled to the wilderness. But Bhishma Dev was always a sincerely sympathetic well-wisher, grandfather, friend, and philosopher to Maharaj Yudhishthir. Even up to the last moment of his life, he died very happily by seeing Maharaj Yudhishthir to the throne. Otherwise, he would have long ago acquitted his material body. Instead of suffering agony over the undue sufferings of the Pandavas, he was simply waiting for the opportune moment because he was sure and certain that the sons of the Pandu would come out victorious on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, as his lordship Sri Krishna was their protector. As a devotee of the Lord, he knew that the Lord's devotee cannot be vanquished at any time. Maharaj Yudhishthir was quite aware of all these good wishes of Bhishma Dev, and therefore he must have been feeling the great separation. He was sorry for the separation of a great soul, and not for the material body which Bhishma Dev relinquished. The funeral ceremony was a necessary duty, although Bhishma Dev was a liberated soul. Since Bhishma Dev was without issue, the eldest grandson, namely Maharaj Yudhishthir, was the rightful person to perform the ceremony. It was a great boon to Bhishma Dev that an equally great son of the family undertook the last rites of a great man. Om Maganatimirandyasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshur en Munitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The translation again. O descendant of Brigu, Shonaka, after performing funeral rituals for the dead body of Bhishma Dev, Maharaj Yudhishthir was momentarily overtaken with grief. So I was preparing this class. It was a pretty busy week, and especially with Guru Purnima. I was meditating on this verse a few times yesterday, and what was coming to my mind is the beautiful translation, purport in this verse where Srila Prabhupada says, trying to look for the verse, the sentence where he says that Srila Prabhupada's that Bhishma Dev was sincerely sympathetic, a well-wisher, a friend, and a philosopher. And Prabhupada said that Bhishma Dev was always sincerely sympathetic, well-wisher, grandfather, friend, and philosopher. So here we can see, because Pandu left his body at a very young age, and his kids were very, very young, very, very small. So the sons not having a father, and the mother being Queen Kunti, not having a husband to take care of, Bhishma Dev was most caring, most affectionate, that he took care of the Pandavas and his daughter-in-law, who was a widow, Kunti Devi, like his very own. Yes, they were under the care of Hastinapur. Yes, they were under the care of Bhishma Dev, Maharaj Dhritarashtra, who was the king at that time, because Maharaj Pandu was, died. But Dhritarashtra had his own children, 100 sons and one daughter. And he was very partial towards his children. But Bhishma Dev was not. So as I was reading the sentence by Srila Prabhupada, where he said that Bhishma Dev was always sincerely sympathetic, well-wisher, and grandfather and friend of philosopher to Maharaj Yudhisthira, and also to the other four brothers of the Pandu, and to his daughter-in-law, Queen Kunti, I can't stop but remember the glories that I have been blessed with hearing about Srila Prabhupada's life. Srila Prabhupada had his own material family. He was married. He had children. He gave it up when the kids were all grown and married. He took Vanapras. He took sannyas. He came to America, and he had thousands of children as his disciples. And Srila Prabhupada was so sympathetic. He was so much a well-wisher for each and every soul that came to him. And he was a father to all his disciples and a grandfather to the disciples of his children. The children of his disciples, children of his disciples. Of course, he was a great philosopher. We all know that. He has written so many books. He has spent so much of his life translating with, from 10 a.m. to 2 in the morning, 10 p.m. to 2 in the morning, very little sleep at the age of 70. Amazing. And he was a friend to all. If I'm not mistaken, I think there is a book. I'm trying to remember who was the author, but there was a book written by a proper disciple where it's entitled A Friend to All, something like that. And it was all about Srila Prabhupada's glories, because Srila Prabhupada was a friend to all. So here we can see how beautifully we are being reminded, even though the purport was translated by Srila Prabhupada himself, how for us we are so mercifully being reminded that Srila Prabhupada was so sympathetic. He was such a well-wisher. He was such a friend to all, a philosopher to all, that even at his last moments of his life, how greatly his last moments was affecting his disciples, right? He, from 1965 to 1977, he did so much for ISKCON. And at a very old age, he was giving love to all, sympathy, sincerity, and compassion and patience and tolerance. You know, this is a person coming from Bengal, from India, who has never been to the West and learning the Western culture. And he came in the time when LSD and hippie life was like prime, high peak. But yet he had to learn the culture of America, and he had to learn the lives of these young people at that time, because he was so compassionate, he was so patient, he was so tolerant, and with that, he was a friend to all. So here we see even Bhishma Dev had those qualities, and how much his last moments was so affected by Maharaj Yudhisthira, that Maharaj Yudhisthira was grieving. And that's the same thing that happened when Srila Prabhupada was at his last moments, and his disciples was really, really, they don't know what to do. I remember listening to a few pastimes from Srila Prabhupada's senior disciples, and I asked a few of them. In fact, they just said, without me asking some of them, what it was like after Srila Prabhupada left the planet. And they said, there was one devotee, Prabhupada disciple, he came to our Ice and Fire Festival table on March 5th in Harrisburg. And I used to live in Gitanagiri for quite some time, and we used to carpool together to go to work in Harrisburg. And I had a good fortune to learn so much about Prabhupada from this devotee, Bubrit Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple. And I asked him, I said, Prabhu, what was it like after Srila Prabhupada left the planet, and when he left his body? And he said, Anasuya, there was darkness in everyone's life. There was grieving. He says, I remember when we received the call. He said at the time he was a brahmachari. He said, well, when I received the call that Srila Prabhupada left his body, I remember running up to my room and closing the door and crying, because I don't know what to do. I felt like my life came to an end. And I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, he said. So because we don't know anything but Prabhupada. We don't know anything but Prabhupada, he said. And I asked him, I said, Prabhu, how long did it take you to come out of it? He says, I don't remember. But it was with everyone, because at the time, every disciple in ISKCON, majority of them were Prabhupada disciples. So they had to learn. In fact, I think it was Tamal Krishna Goswami or Giriraj Swami, few days or so, a couple of weeks or so before Prabhupada left his planet, Prabhupada was concerned about the movement. And he asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Giriraj Swami, when I leave, can you all continue ISKCON? Can you continue the movement? And they said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, we will keep chanting, we will keep distributing your books, we will attend the morning program, we'll follow the 4 regulations, and we will follow all that you've taught us. And I think with that, we should be able, we will be able to continue with the movement. Srila Prabhupada said, he was very quiet. And then he said, organization and intelligence is what's going to help the movement go forward. So when Srila Prabhupada left the planet, left his body, all his disciples were thinking, what to do? Prabhupada is not here. The apple of our eye, as they say, right? The focus, our goal, the person that was our well-wisher, our friend, our father, our philosopher, our everything has left us. What do we do? And they were going through great agony, separation, vipralamba, separation. And we see it here between Bhishma Dev and Maharaj Yudhisthira. Great separation. And it took years for the devotees to really figure out with organization and intelligence, how to make the movement flourish and grow to where it is up until now. Yeah, we're still learning. There are some mistakes made, but that's how we learn, right? But here we see Srila Prabhupada so nicely saying to Bhishma Dev, so nicely saying to Maharaj Yudhishthira, saying, giving a smile that he died very happily, Bhishma Dev, because he knows it's in the safe hands. Maharaj knew what he was doing, and he was well trained by his teacher. So Bhishma Dev said, Maharaj Yudhishthira, if he is the king, I have nothing to worry. And he even knew that the Pandavas will win the battle. Why is that so? Because Lord Krishna was on their side. And he also knew that the Pandavas were great followers of the Lord. So he says, there is no way they will lose the war. There's no way they will be vanquished. They will definitely be there winning this war. Bhishma Dev had full faith. So in that same way, Srila Prabhupada had full faith in his disciples. I'm sure he would have known that there would be mistakes, but that's how we learn. But the amazing part of it is that Srila Prabhupada has an eternal relationship with his devotees, with all his disciples, how he trained them, how he prepared them, what he taught them, all his teachings, all his instructions, right? Everything is noted down. Everything is written. Everything is jotted. We have all of Srila Prabhupada's memories written, all his letters, all his room conversations. Everything is recorded. I mean, nowadays we don't record anything. But at the time, for some, high-level reason, every conversation of Srila Prabhupada was recorded. Every letter was recorded. Every morning walk was recorded. Every lecture was recorded. Everything. And we have it. So Srila Prabhupada has an eternal relationship with his disciples. So in the same way, Bhishma Dev, he died very happily by seeing Maharaj Yudhishthira on the throne because he knew, okay, it's in safe hands. I can leave. And especially because they have Krishna on their side, because I have nothing to worry. Srila Prabhupada had Krishna on his side from, 100%. Nothing to worry. Nothing to worry. And Srila Prabhupada was confident that his disciples would uphold the movement. Yes, after he left, there were many changes they had to figure out, like in any family, right? When the head of the household leaves, one parent leaves, so an elder of the family leaves, it shakes up the family, causes some disturbance. Because everyone have to figure out, okay, now the head of the household or the elder of the family is not here now. How do we move on? How do we go on? What do we do? So there's some shifting and adjustments, And it's the same thing that happened in ISKCON when Srila Prabhupada left. It was a learning lesson for everyone. And all the Prabhupada disciples had to learn that they had to lean on each other. Because fighting was not going to get them anywhere. Prabhupada said, the movement can only break from inside, not from outside. Meaning, if the devotees within the ISKCON movement are not cooperative, are not leaning on each other, are not communicating and helping each other, it will break. No one from outside can break us if we allow them to come in. But he says the movement will break from within. So every disciple of Srila Prabhupada after he left, they had to learn, we got to lean on each other. And if you see Maharaj Yudhishthira and his brothers, they were so tight. 5 of them, they were so tight They leaned on each other. There was no envy among the brothers. There was no greed. There was no selfishness. There was no pride. All they had was love and cooperation between Maharaj Yudhishthira and his 4 brothers. All they had was cooperation. They had love. They had no greed. They didn't even have no envy. If one brother was getting glorified than the other brother, no one got envious. They worked together, they served together. And that's why Bhishma Dev knew, if it's in Maharaj Yudhishthira's hands, the kingdom, I have nothing to worry. And that's exactly what happened when Srila Prabhupada left the movement. That his disciples had to learn, man, we got to lean on each other. No more backbiting. No more gossiping. No more, what's that's a common word they use in the school. Tattletales, I think is what it's called. No more bringing one down, right? All that they had to take it out in order for them to help the movement grow. And they leaned on each other. They leaned on each other and they took support from each other. And they spoke to one another and they helped each other. That is community. That is community. Community is we help each other. We support each other. We lean on each other. We listen to each other. We take shelter of each other. We help each other. We serve each other with organization and intelligence. But it's sad that sometimes devotees have to learn that gossiping and backbiting and pulling one down and trying to compete and I gotta be better than you and that's this competition, that competition for selfishness or competition for our own sense gratification is not Krishna consciousness. We just serve. Whatever we are told to do, we just do. So Srila Prabhupada had full confidence in the disciples that they will uphold the movement. Yes, there'll be mistakes. There's mistakes in everything in life. We don't live in an ideal world. I remember when I first got married, my husband used to always remind me and tell me, we don't live in an ideal world. We don't. There's going to be mistakes. And we learn through mistakes. And we try not to repeat them. We lean on each other. But Prabhupada knew there's going to be mistakes, but he had full confidence that his disciples would uphold the movement. Yes, there'll be mistakes. Yes, they're going to learn the hard way. Yes, they're going to, be disorganized here and there. Yes, it's going to be, chaotic sometimes. Because why? Because it's clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita. When a great acharya leaves, when a great teacher leaves, there will be chaos. So Prabhupada knew that, but he had full confidence that the movement will go on, provided we work together, we cooperate together. And Srila Prabhupada says, and he told his disciples, your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate together. So if we say we love Srila Prabhupada, then we have to cooperate together instead of, I'm going to get you, I'm going to bring you down, I'm going to backbite you, I'm going to talk bad about you, I'm going to gossip about you, that is not cooperation. If we do and act like that, then we don't have love for Srila Prabhupada. Then we cannot say, I love Srila Prabhupada. Forget Srila Prabhupada. We cannot even say, I love my spiritual master. Because our spiritual master is 100% dedicated to Srila Prabhupada's mission. our spiritual master, is 100% giving their lives to Srila Prabhupada. And all the spiritual masters are one, Guru Tattva. They're all one. And the only goal in life or focus in life is Srila Prabhupada's teachings. What pleases Srila Prabhupada? That's it. Follow his teachings, follow his mission, follow his instructions. And if we don't know, we have to ask someone, ask a senior devotee, what did Srila Prabhupada say about this? And I want to remind devotees about Vishukada Prabhu's comment when he shared, WWSPD, what will Srila Prabhupada do? And if we don't know, then we ask a senior devotee. Sometimes we may have very good ideas, but we always have to check with another devotee. I have this idea. It may be the best of ideas. It may be, a surefire idea, right? But is that the right way to do? If Srila Prabhupada was here, what would he say? Is that the right? And if we don't know, we got to ask. That's how we lean on each other. That's how we work together. And that's how we show a love for Srila Prabhupada. Because Srila Prabhupada says, if you love me, your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate with each other. And some of us who are initiated on this call, if we say we love our spiritual master, then we have to cooperate with one another. We have to lean on one another. We cannot say, I love my spiritual master. Absolutely. But then we do backbiting and gossiping and this and that, bringing someone down, why you're not doing, all kinds of, we have to be very careful how we treat one another. And I want to remind devotees of one of the prayers of my spiritual master, one of his 4 principles. He says, the success and failure of our spiritual life is determined by how we treat one another. Very much in line with Srila Prabhupada's instructions to his disciples, saying, your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate together. So if we want to be successful in our spiritual life, then we have to treat each other Krishna consciously. Cooperation. We may not agree with everything, but we cooperate anyway. We may not, agree with one way of doing it to the other, but we cooperate anyway. Bhakti Swami, we could sing his glories all day long. Bhakti Swami was amazing when he was leaving his body in America during the first few months of COVID. And he left his body because of COVID, actually. That led to everything else. And there was a time where they said that, there was no hope for him. And his disciples asked him, Gurudev, what do we do with your body? He says, you ask my senior God brothers. Whatever they say, I will do. He never said, you do this, you do this, you do this. This is what I want. Bhakti Swami never said that. In fact, his God brothers, Jayapataka Swami, Gopal Krishna Maharaj, you name it. Anuttama Prabhu, many of his God brothers were asking him, do this, do this treatment, Maharaj. We need you for longer. You can't leave us. ISKCON has so much more to do. We have so much more to do for Prabhupada's mission. And every time, if we hear the God brothers, when they speak, they're always helping each other. You can't leave, Maharaj. We have so much more to do for Prabhupada's mission. They're always reminding each other of Prabhupada's mission. But if we see, sadly, unfortunately, amongst the younger generation of devotees, what we say is, no, I need that service for my happiness. We don't remind each other about Prabhupada's mission. But the Prabhupada disciples, whenever they say, you cannot leave right now, Prabhu, we need you more. There's so much more to do for Prabhupada's mission. They're always reminding each other of Sri Prabhupada's mission. And Bhakti Swami said to his god brothers, and I remember he said this to Jayapataka Swami, whatever you want me to do, Maharaj, I will do. I am surrendered at your feet. You want me to take treatment? I'll take treatment. You want me to give up my life? I'll give up my life. You want me to extend my life? I'll extend my life. He says, whatever you want me to do, cooperation. He was completely sold out at the feet of his god brothers because he said, and I remember one of his classes, he said, even if I don't agree with my god brothers, I'm going to work with them anyway. And Bhakti Swami was Vaishnav etiquette personified. He was, one of the greatest sons of Srila Prabhupada. I mean, like I said, we can talk about Maharaj all day, but he said, even if I don't agree, I'm going to follow anyway, because these are my senior god brothers, and they know my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. Right? So if we say, I love my spiritual master, then we have to cooperate with one another, lean on one another in service to Srila Prabhupada's mission. Very, very important point. Because you look at the Pandavas, they were tight. They were tight. The 5 brothers were tight. No envy whatsoever. None. I mean, imagine, right? 5 brothers, 1 wife. They had no envy. I mean, sincere well wishes. And if you see that in Srila Prabhupada, that is what it was with all his disciples. And so nicely, Srila Prabhupada ended towards the end. He says, it was a great boon to Bhishma Dev that an equally great son of the family undertook the last rites of a great man. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada was a great man. His appearance into this material world was predicted by Lord Chaitanya 500 something years ago. I just posted a wonderful post about the memories of Lord Chaitanya. Beautiful post. And Lord Chaitanya predicted this 500 something years ago, that I am going to spread the holy name all over India, but someone will come in the future to spread the holy name all over the world. Srila Prabhupada. We are so fortunate to have a grandfather in our lives like Srila Prabhupada. We are so fortunate to be in the same line with Srila Prabhupada, in the same disciplica section, because he was a great man. And Lord Chaitanya was none other than Krishna himself. And if Lord Chaitanya, who appeared 540 something years ago, predicted that another great man will come in the future and spread the holy name all over the world, and that prediction was made by Krishna himself when he incarnated as Lord Chaitanya, then that is enough promise for us to know that we are in the right line of disciplic succession. And Srila Prabhupada was a great man. Great man. And the devotees who did his last rites for Srila Prabhupada were great men. Great men. So we are so fortunate to be part of this beautiful ISKCON movement under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada. And we are so fortunate to have spiritual masters who love Srila Prabhupada, who always cooperate and don't fight. Always cooperate, because Prabhupada says, your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate. And we are so fortunate to be disciples of those spiritual masters. And We have to learn to cooperate, just like how Maharaj Yudhishthira and his 4 brothers were so cooperative. No one was backbiting. No one was pulling anybody down. Even if anyone was being glorified, everyone was glorifying. That's the same person. No one felt, oh, they're glorifying that person. What about me? Never. So beautifully. So this was my thoughts and realization, from this wonderful verse, because as I was reading it, all I could think of was Srila Prabhupada. Because if you see also in all of Srila Prabhupada's letters that he has written to his disciples, he always ends with, your ever well wisher. And that's what triggered me to share what little bit, very, very little bit I know, because I heard these pastimes from my seniors and from Srila Prabhupada disciples, that we have a great well-wisher in our life, a great philosopher, and a great grandfather. And those of us who are not initiated, Srila Prabhupada is our preeminent Shiksha Guru. So we have nothing to fear. So these were my thoughts. I want to thank the devotees so much for allowing me to speak, allowing me to say some few words. If there are any questions, any comments, please do raise your hands. Yes, Mother Geeta.
Please accept my humble
I don't know why,
obeisance.
Mother, I can't hear you. I think it's on my end. I'm going to call my daughter over to do my sound thingy. I don't know why I can't hear you. Vrinda, can you please come over? I can't seem to hear anyone for some reason. I don't know what I did. I can't hear Mother Geeta speak. But go ahead, Mother. I'm going to hear on my daughter's cell phone.
Oh, okay. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for such a wonderful class. And I would say ecstatic because it was full of Prabhupada consciousness. And, this is something we need to remind ourselves on a daily basis that, first we need to become conscious of Prabhupada. Only then we can think about becoming, conscious of Krishna. My question is that Srila Prabhupada took so much trouble to give us a perfect process, and that too coming down in strict disciplic succession. So what is the reason? Like you said, Prabhupada wanted all of us to cooperate. So what is the reason that I would say, I don't know about this Prabhupada disciples, but at least some grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada who are not following his instructions as it is, but are coming up with their own mental speculation. How can, I don't know, it's very sad, but what is the reason that, we have a perfect parampara and still some devotees do not want to follow Srila Prabhupada? Thank you.
Mother, I asked that. Linda, take this phone from me. Mother, I asked that same question from few prophet disciples. And the answer that I got from all of them, one is training. One is the devotees are not being trained from being Prabhupada conscious. I think that is what's one of the main problems, is that we have to connect devotees to Prabhupada for them to understand who he is, what he is, why he did what he did, and all the books that he has written, and why he wrote that books. If it was not for the grandfather, we would not be here. Like for me, if it was not for my grandfather, I wouldn't have had a father. And if I didn't have a father, I wouldn't even be here. So I think the one thing that came from the answers that I received when I asked the same question is training. and educating. I remember asking the same question from Balabhadra Prabhu, and he says, Anasuya, go back to the first mission of Prabhupada's 7 mission, ISKCON. He says, to train and educate. He says, we have to train and educate devotees and to help them increase their hearing of Srila Prabhupada's books, attending classes. And I think the problem is we don't increase our hearing. We're not attentively chanting. We're not taking shelter of devotees. Because I've even asked the same question from one other devotee, one other senior Prabhupada disciples. And as soon as one gets initiated, they think, okay, I'm initiated, I'm very senior. But that's not the point. And I remember Vishnupada Prabhu saying that as soon as one gets initiated, if for 1 year, they are 1 year toddler. He says, if they're 2 years initiated, they are in the terrible 2 stage. If they're 5 years initiated, they are in kindergarten, So I think, Mother, the point goes back to training and educating devotees in the right consciousness of hearing from seniors, taking shelter of the seniors and proper disciples, taking instructions from the proper disciples and the seniors, following in the footsteps of their charges and learning from them, taking their guidance. And what's coming to my mind, Mother, is very, very similar to, when we go to school, if we do not do what the teachers say, we fail. We deviate, we go off track, and then we make our lives a living hell, as they say. So we just got to follow what the teachers say. And also, Mother, I think the main thing that I've also realized is that we, at least for me, what I've realized is that sometimes we are so afraid to correct someone when they do something wrong. And my spiritual master has said that if we know that someone is doing something not right, and if we do not correct them, but we talk about it forever, but we don't correct it, then we are also at fault because we didn't do anything to change the situation. So he said that we have to correct the younger devotees, guide the younger devotees, train them, educate them, expose them to Prabhupada. I think that's the main thing, is expose them to Prabhupada, expose them to Guru, expose them to really knowing who Prabhupada is, really understanding who Prabhupada is. I think it's so important, Mother. That's what I have been told, Mother, by Prabhupada disciples and seniors. But I'm sure, Mother Gita, you have more experience than me, because I think I've asked you that same question one time too, I think. Okay, the other question is, go ahead, Mother.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Perfect. I was just, thinking about, as I put in the question, I thought you might not be able to hear me. What is the destination of someone who is not following the parampara and, coming up with their own process, so that this is what Prabhupada meant, or this is what he said, coming up with their own conclusions?
Mother, I asked that same question. It's funny. I asked that same question because I sometimes go through that dilemma too. And one devotee said to me, there will be mercy built in it, but if they use it, how did he put it? I'm trying to think. But if they misuse it, that's the word he used. Yeah. If they misuse the mercy in the wrong way, then they will empty their bank accounts and they will have to come back and start from scratch again. That's the answer that I was given, Mother, that if they misuse the process for a wrong, situation, for their own sense of gratification or for their own way of doing it, there'll be some mercy built in because they started off the process, but it's like, putting money in the bank account, in the right way. Then when they lose the job or when they have some other ideas to use the money for some other purpose, then they use it in the wrong way and they empty the bank account. Now they have to find a way to fill in the bank account. So what this senior devotee was telling me is that, yeah, they'll go on. The mercy will be there. They'll go on. But if they if they keep misusing it, it's going to go empty. And then at that time, it's all between them and the spiritual master. It's a quote unquote a spiritual contract agreement, like I don't like to use that word, but it's a devotional process that a contract between them and the guru, because the spiritual master is our advocate to take us back to Godhead. So if we put ourselves back in jail, and the spiritual master is going to say, but you put yourself in jail, what do you want me to do? So I think from what I'm understanding from the answer that I got, Mother, is that it's going to be a repeated process until they really understand who Prabhupada is. But that's what came to my mind, Mother. That's the answer that I got, because I had the same exact question. Same exact question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mother. It's just funny, Mother, that your questions and mine were the same. And I asked the same thing. Dear Krishna has a nice, very Hare Krishna Mataji, accept my basis August Prabhupada. Very, very nice class. Other proper training for sure. Could one of the cause be the source of hearing? Yes, Prabhu. Yes, yes, yes. I think each devotee also needs guidance on what to hear and from whom, depending upon their level of consciousness. Hearing is the main thing, Prabhu, and like I think I was mentioning one of my classes is that, and I even asked Mother Geeta the same question too in one of her classes, and she very nicely said that if there is a first grader and a 10th grader in class, we have to give the class based on the first grader, because it'll be a review for the 10th grader. It doesn't hurt to get reviews, I mean, we hear the same lecture over and over again, but it'll be new to the first grader. But we have to be very careful who we hear from. Very, very careful, because I mean, there's, like there's one, I remember speaking to one devotee, I'm trying to remember, a proper disciple also, I don't remember who it was, that I even read a quote by Srila Prabhupada, where Srila Prabhupada said that Prabhupada really never approved about the 7-day Bhagavat Sapta, is what I was told in one quote and one proper disciple, because he says, we are trying to be Maharaj Parikshit, when we are not. He says, sometimes we feel we are so elevated and we are so paka, and we are so, what's the word, so pure and this, that we feel that we are at the level of Maharaj Parikshit. And then if we hear the Bhagavad Sapta for 7 days, we can attain perfection. He says, it doesn't happen. Maharaj Parikshit was a pure devotee of the Lord. He was the grandson of Abhimanyu and the great-grandson of Maharaj Yudhishthira and the whole parampara system from the family. He says, we are not Maharaj Parikshit. He says, we cannot attain perfection in 7 days by listening to the Bhagavad Gita. So we'd be very, very careful to hear the source of the knowledge. Very, very careful, Prabhu. And that's what I was mentioning in class. Like I used the example of a science book. There are so many science books that you can find in any bookstore. So many science books. And if we want to learn, say, I'm just going to pick a topic, Charles' law or Boyle's law, some of the laws, right? Say in physics, for example. There are millions of physics textbooks and books written by so many professors available in the country, in the world. And they all write about a certain principle in the physics subject. But not every of the book is going to make sense to us based on our, our reception, our receptiveness, and our perception, and our understanding. So we go to our in-class teacher and say, Professor so-and-so, there are so many books out there, and I want to understand this principle. And there are too many books, and I don't know how to understand it. So which book is right for me? So the professor will tell us, you know what? This is the right book for you. because it's very clearly explained, and based on your understanding and based on your receptiveness, that's the right book for you. So our hearing is so critical, so critical. And if we don't know what to hear, then we should ask our seniors, who should I hear from? What do I hear? And also, but we will never go wrong by hearing Srila Prabhupada's lectures, ever. We will never go wrong. But yes, dear Krishna, it's so important that we really, that hearing is I think is one of the biggest problems in today's times, that we are not hearing from the right source, because, sometimes when we hear, we forget to check ourselves, to ask us, I am in grade 1, so I should listen from those who I can easily recept, rather than listening to a high school professor, a high school teacher. I should be listening to someone because I'm in grade 1. But we have to recognize that we are in the learning process. We are in grade 1. Sometimes we're in grade 1, but we want to feel like we are in the 4th year college. But we have to know where I'm at. Like, I know for me, when I first joined Krishna consciousness, it was very difficult for me to hear, because I wanted something very simple. It was too much, like, all over my head. So I was very simple. So what I did, honestly speaking, what really helped me to increase my hearing, Dear Krishna, was devotional service. I had to learn the other route, because for me to hear right away, I said, this is too much. I'm very simple, I need something very, very, very simple. So I said, I got to do something. So a proper disciple told me, Anasuya, you do more service. So the more service I did, then I got the taste for hearing, because I had to do service with the devotees. So the hearing is very critical. But yes, I hope I answered your question, dear Krishna. I'm using Vrinda's phone to hear, because I
Hare
don't know
Krishna,
why I
Mataji,
can't
please
hear on
accept my
this.
humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you. Yes, Mataji, absolutely. Very nice point. And especially, I like the last point, that why are we listening, hearing, and doing everything? Because to get trained in the devotional service. So that is the whole idea. And like Srila Prabhupada said, if you serve a dog, dog will serve you. If you serve Krishna, Krishna will take care of you. So same thing. Thank you, Mataji. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions from devotees? Any other points? Any other sharing? I want to share a quick pastime story. We just, because our temple is 1 day a week temple, we don't have the murti of Srila Prabhupada, and we have a picture of Prabhupada, a big picture on his Vasasan. And after 3 years, we finally got Srila Prabhupada's Vasasan complete, with an arm rail and bolster pillows and all that. So nice. And I sent a picture to one devotee yesterday. I said, look at this. I said, Srila Prabhupada's Vasasan is rocking. And this devotee texted me back and said, Mataji, it is wow, wow, wow. And Srila Prabhupada is going to probably jump off his Vasasan and dance with us. So yesterday during Gaur Purnima, when I saw the devotees dancing so much, I looked at Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan. I said, Srila Prabhupada, are you going to join us in dancing? Because it was so nice to see all the devotees chanting for Lord Chaitanya's appearance. They were so, so nice. Everybody was so ecstatic. So yeah, just a little pastime. But I want to thank all the devotees. And a quick reminder, tonight is our Bhagavad Gita circle, 6 o'clock. We just started chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita. So please do join us 6 o'clock for our Bhagavad Gita circle tonight. Until then, have a wonderful day. Vanchakaptabhyascha kripasindhabhevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother Gita. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Nice
Hare
class.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Colby.